what are the margins going forward, and and what are the prices going to be, that if Nick is right and we do kind of see a lack of competent supply from other manufacturers besides Tesla to fill that demand.
Yeah, I just had a question for the panel because I'm a little confused about, like, I understand Tesla's putting out their statement about 2024, but we're going into 2024 with the tax credit at point of sale. Likely to your point, Emmett, they'll probably continue to cut prices for the vehicles as we move forward. All these other companies are pulling back on their EV sales, and yet EV adoption is growing year over year over year. So who else is going to fill that segment if it's not Tesla? Like it makes me like I struggle to rationalize both those together. And I'm curious how you guys think about that.
I think that's a great question. I think if we look at Tesla's verbiage, this is my opinion. If we look at Tesla's verbiage on the earnings deck, sort of their focus on that, what was it, the highlight page, on the last section, if I can share my screen real quick. Here we go. We are focused on bringing the next generation platform to market as quickly as we can, with the plan to start production in Gigafactory Texas. This platform will revolutionize how vehicles are manufactured. And then there was some other line in here where they talked about I forget where they put it, but essentially the goal here is to drive prices lower. So maybe we need to take that as a signal that says, hey, I don't think magically we're going to get a different tune from Elon on this earnings call versus the other ones that was interest rates matter. Interest rates are keeping our cars from truly being as affordable as we want them to. So we're going to continue to drop prices. And I think there might be something to be said around, maybe there is more of a hesitant tone going into 2024, because I don't know how you guys feel about this, but the more people I talk to, the more people I hear, yeah, it's kind of getting tough out there. I don't know if you guys are hearing that. This is completely anecdotal. So it might be a reflection that says, hey, we think the economy is not going to be in that good of a shape. Yeah, we're going to be able to sell 2.2 million cars at, at 45 or 44 ASP, whatever that number is, average selling price. But that market still can only get us to 2.2 to 2.3 million cars at a complete maximum in 2024, with the amount of factories we've built, with the countries that we're in, with the amount of demand that's out there for the cars, and our hesitancy to advertise. Okay? So, and I'm wondering if this is all just saying, hey, we are planning, we are betting on the compact car to come in and filling that gap, and just wait a year. We're working on it. We don't want to work on the compact car and expand production for the Y and the 3. Let us work on this thing. We'll figure out how to get out there as soon as possible, and then you'll see the doors come off. And as Cybertruck ramps as well, you think about having essentially a car in every segment now for the company, and that's what's going to allow the car company to go into that, that filling that gap where the rest of the EV makers are not making as much. So I think that there's a lot of validity to what you're saying, Nick. Like, I think if the economy was growing and EV adoption was continuing, then one would say if they're stopped not selling as many, then that in theory means Tesla is selling more. But I think maybe the thought process here is, hey, we just think that we think 2024 is going to be rough. I don't know. I'm obviously going to be wrong here, but that's how I'm thinking about it.
I wouldn't necessarily, by the way, I've been saying the same thing that Nick's been saying for a while. Just look at where EV adoption is going. You put a band around it. You don't pick the best number. You don't pick the worst number. You kind of look at the range. And, for whatever reason, we can't count cars in this country or in other countries, but you see different numbers of 8% EV adoption last year to 9% EV adoption as reported by major institutions like S&P Mobility, for example. And, they're forecasting, for example, for it to go from 9 to 13.2%. So let's say you don't believe it, say it's going to 12%. Still, that growth, call it that 30 some percent growth. It's correct to assume that others, not only have they not taken their capacity up, they actually have motivation to not increase their capacity and to not increase output. Capacity and output are two different things, and people need to be very clear on this. There is no terminal rate on gross margins that allows a Ford or a GM to make money on their EVs today. So if they 3x their volume or 4x their volume, they've done the math internally and they know they have broken unit economics, and therefore they're like, we're not going to even try. That's why you saw Ford do 2 cuts in output. They're actually moving people off of shifts. They did 2 cuts in 5 weeks. So it's not that just people don't want EVs. That growth is going to go from 70% maybe in adoption, and talking about the US only right now, 70% down to, okay, maybe it's 40, maybe it's 30, maybe it's 25%. What other businesses besides H100s with NVIDIA are growing, greater than 25%? So I think you've got to look at things in context and try to understand where this is. I wouldn't fight the Tesla rhetoric on volume growth, but I would look to the cash position from a balance sheet perspective. I would look for them troughing gross margins. And again, that 3.5% COGS reduction quarter on quarter, that is stout. That is industry leading. That is extremely difficult to do. And we'll go and we'll piece, they said that they've actually taken reductions on all their models, but we'll see how much of it's mix related, how much of it's raw COGS related per vehicle. But that is undeniable. So what they've done, and I think in gross margins, I think what they've done in cash, and I wouldn't fight so much what they're saying on volumes, but there are things out there that say, hey, others have pulled back. The spiffs have gotten amazing. 6.5 or 7 out of 10 of every vehicles they sell is a Model Y, and that gets a tax credit in North America, and a lot of people qualify for that. So I think they don't know how it's going to go, and therefore they're taking a little bit more of a conservative path, and they've painted this point of like, hey, we're between these two peaks, and we're kind of riding up to the next peak. You see the leak from Reuters, and then now you see them talking about it in their earnings release. So I think it's all kind of starting to get packaged together. And if you've got markets look forward, I don't know if they look exactly in 12-month increments, January to December 31st. I think they look a little bit further ahead, and not many, many years, but at least into the early part of next year, already 4 quarters away from that vehicle starting ramp up. So, I think there's a lot to unpack here. I wouldn't fight them on the volumes, but I am pleased. I think they drew a line in the sand on gross margins, and for now. And I by the way, just to be very clear, they will continue cutting prices, but they're going to do it in concert with their COGS reduction program. And I think that's a switch that got flipped on in the last quarter.
I think if anything, Tesla has positioned itself very nicely, and my dogs agree. We'll find out if this is a sandbag or if this is actually ensuring that investors have the proper expectations, and they're not trying to overpromise anymore. They're just trying to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. Just listen to us. We got it. We'll find out by the end of this year if this is what kind of learning lesson this is for the company, especially as a more mature, seasoned company in this arena that still has a bunch of startups going on. So there might be a hint of that as well. And the reason why I say that is if I think back, and this is just like psychology more than investing advice, which sometimes I wonder what the difference is, I don't think it's a science per se, but I'm happy to debate that. When the Model Y was announced back in 2019, that was the most sandbag thing Tesla ever did. It was, it'll come out at some point in the future. The unveil was super subdued. They barely were talking about it. And then it arrived 6 months early, and it blew the market wide open for Tesla. And they were able to sell 1.2 million this year. So some of this kind of gives me a similar vibe, where maybe they're learning they're kind of going back to that mode where they're like, okay, we're working on compact car. We know this thing's going to do 5 million per year at full ramp. We know everyone's going to be tripping over themselves to buy it. We know Cybertruck has incredible demand, and this thing's going to be, it's going to sell itself for years on end. We know we have the best EV on the road with the Model Y. Let's just use that to our advantage, keep collecting cash. We'll lower the expectations. And then once V12 is ready to go, then the whole thing blows wide open. From a strategy perspective, that sounds right, but again, these guys are they know better than any of us combined. So, but that's how I'm thinking about the story right now.
I mean, one of the things that it really causes me to question is, what are the margins going forward, and what are the prices going to be, that if Nick is right and we do kind of see a lack of competent supply from other manufacturers besides Tesla to fill that demand, especially if we get some rate cuts and the interest rates drop. It could be that Tesla's not really going to be growing supply at the same rate that demand is going to be growing in 2024. And that because of that, we actually get price increases instead of price cuts. If that's where the demand is, especially like Jeff said, with the amount of fleet that is sold that is Model Ys, and with that being eligible for the point of sale tax credit, and we've seen all of the Cybertruck shows or showcases that have been in all the stores, that those are drawing in a lot of attention, a lot of foot traffic to the stores. And I think there's probably going to be quite a few people that are coming in to look at a Cybertruck and then walking out with an incredible Model Y that they had no idea was so affordable. And so I don't know, like I'm not saying that I think that there will be price increases, but I definitely think that it's a lot more feasible this year than people might expect.
And to add to that, days of inventory declined Q4 from Q3.
Yeah, good point.
So
Yeah, that was interesting.
this is a machine that is ripping. You look at other auto, and again, sometimes we compare ourselves to other auto and they got single digit P's, got it. But I think there's two different things happening. I think there's a macro auto picture of ICE. You know, ICE vehicles are essentially have negative, like in North America, they have negative growth planned next year. That's the forecast in the SAR. And you've got inventory starting to pile up. And I think you have this macro ICE issue and you have this legacy EV issue, 114 days of a legacy EV supply, non-Tesla EV supply leaving 2023. And you have Tesla going from 16 to 15 days of inventory. Their days of sales went down too. I don't even think they have enough inventory in channel to match some of the sellout that they need to do. So it's interesting here. I think they have definitely kind of gone to this little bit under promise, over commit mode. Again, I'm not saying that they're sandbagging. I think there are issues out there that have to be dealt with from a macro perspective. I don't think anybody knows, but if you look at this machine that's running, it's go from 16 to 15 days of inventory. I mean, this is unheard of. This is, by the way, this is end-to-end inventory. So this means this all makes sense to me from when I look at the COGS reductions of 3.5%. They're moving material so fast through their system that when they come up with an idea or they put the screws down on a supplier, it gets into their supply chain, gets into their factory so quickly that they're able to actually reduce COGS at a rate that's faster than anybody else building vehicles. Quite frankly, this 3.5% is better than anybody that's building anything, that's complex at this point.